Hi, Shannon here with Therapy by Shannon, and I'm going to just talk at you guys a little bit about internal family systems. This is a modality that I was trained in last year and just think it's really great, and so just want to share a little bit about it with you guys. So, what internal family systems is it's a worldwide movement and evidence-based model of non-pathologizing psychotherapy, and it's based on the understanding that the mind is naturally multiple, and that we aren't just like one whole personality. So we all have this thing called like a core self, and it's designed to bring harmony and healing to the system, as well as we all have various parts of ourselves, and they're each tasked with very specific roles to kind of keep the system and our lives internally and externally running as smoothly as possible. So what happens though is throughout our life, these systems get wounded and receive all sorts of mixed messages, and this causes burdens inside of us. This, of course, creates a lot of different protective patterns and behaviors that are there to designed to keep us alive and surviving and keep moving forward on the path we all call life. But what happens is these burdens kind of create these patterns within these parts that block kind of ourself or our self energy and the light that kind of naturally shines from that, therefore not allowing us to feel it and or other people to feel it. And this blockage often causes suffering inside us and of course in the world, and left unattended to, it can lead to a lot of friction and shame and difficulties in our lives and in our relationships. The core belief behind IFS or internal family systems is that there's no such thing as a bad part, that we, if we're able to meet each part of ourselves with compassion and curiosity, with the goals in mind of building a relationship with that part and really getting to learn about it and hear its story and release some of those burdens and mixed messages that it's received throughout the years from its, true lived experiences or for society or whatever it may be, then this kind of just creates more space for our true self to kind of show up and be the leader and kind of emerge and shine through, opposed to all these different parts having to kind of jump in front of ourselves to lead and to run our lives. So, of course, with that, there is like a goal with IFS, and really what the goal with IFS is to help people bring awareness to, listen to, and understand and heal all their internal parts and wounds, and really get to know these patterns to help the world and yourself become a more compassionate space overall. So a lot of what you just kind of heard me share is like parts language is what people will call it. So it's kind of like, well, what are parts? We all have them. At the core, parts are just our thoughts, feelings, maybe different voices that we have inside of our head, images, memories that pop up, sensations, words, sounds, vibes or energies, emotions, all the things that are going on inside of our head and in our bodies every day. Those are parts of us. So sometimes you even find yourself talking and saying, well, a part of me thinks this, a part of me feels like this. Perfect example. Those are just two different parts of you, sometimes polarized and conflicting, leaving us stuck in the middle, feeling like we have to choose one or the other. So what these parts do all day is they kind of stay blended with us and help us manage our lives. So maybe we have a type A doer part, or we have a manager part, or we have something that avoids conflict at all costs or hates emotions, whatever it is, we all have these different parts that kind of manage and guide our lives. So kind of like, for example, if you are going to meet a friend for lunch and your friend is late, you've likely have several things going on inside of your head about all sorts of things. So kind of like, should I text him to see where he is? Oh my God, I can't believe he's late again. He's always so late. Am I at the right restaurant? Did I tell him the right time? I hate sitting at the table alone. Pretty sure everyone's looking at me. My stomach is hurting. Maybe I should get up and go to the bathroom. Should I look at my phone? Should I scroll through Instagram? Like some of these thoughts are coming from some of like the same root part, maybe like anxious or self-conscious or nervous. But the only way to really figure out what thoughts and sensations belong to what part is really to slow down and explore them and extend some curiosity to them and try to separate a little bit from them so we can learn a little bit more about them and being able to speak for the parts and not from the parts. So what that means is speaking from the parts would be like, I'm so nervous, I told my friend the wrong time in the wrong restaurant. By saying that, we really don't leave a lot of our space to do anything else other than stay nervous that you told your friend the wrong restaurant on the wrong time. So it just leaves you in a space of having the only option to be nervous. So, nothing else can come online to help you. It's just like we're going to sit there and spiral in this space of being nervous because we are like, I am so nervous. Where if we were wording it and thinking about it a little bit differently of like, a part of me is so nervous that I told my friend the wrong time to meet or the wrong restaurant. That statement is speaking from our parts. So it's noticing that a part of me is very nervous about this thing, but it also leaves space for other things to come online. Maybe something to come online to be like, let's check our text messages to see what day and time we told that individual to meet us. So it just gives it a little bit more space for other things to come online and help us from staying in that nervous spiral. And also just has us recognize that like this nervous thing that is really big and like totally in our bodies and minds right now is not the only thing there. Again, a part of me is really nervous versus I am really nervous. Always being able to bring that parts lingo in is helpful. And so before I mentioned, like all of us have this like core self that is inside of us. What that self is, if we try to picture it, is kind of like the internal core leader. And then we have all these parts that are kind of constructed around it. So it is the natural internal leader and wants to build relationship with all these other parts. So it wants to build relationship naturally with our thoughts and our feelings and sensations. And it really wants to bring harmony to the internal system. It's not really like better than or superior to the parts. It's just different because it's naturally got some of these qualities that we are just born with. They can never really be damaged or replaced. And a lot of those are commonly referred to as like the 8 C's. But what those are is calm, confidence, curiosity, clarity, courage, creativity, consistency, connected, and compassion. So whenever we're in a space of maybe feeling one of those 8 C's is when we may really kind of be guided by ourselves, or when we're really able to hear from or connect with that anxious part or that nervous part, knowing that that's likely, like ourself connecting with this thing inside of us that is like really nervous, opposed to most of the time how we navigate these things is we notice we're nervous, we notice we're anxious, and then this thing that connects with it is this thing that wants to make it go away, is this thing that wants to tell it that it's wrong, is this thing that wants to judge it. And that's just like a part talking to another part. And so if we have our nervousness about our friend being late and us telling them the wrong time possibly to meet, and then we have this thing over here that is like, geez, Shannon, you always tell people the wrong thing, you're not very reliable, you're never can't be trusted with kind of relaying information. That's a very judgmental part, just trying to connect with this nervousness. That's not going to ever bring any type of connection or compassion online, because the judgmental part only knows how to judge. The nervous part only knows how to be nervous. So really making sure that when we are trying to connect with these different parts of ourselves, that we're really trying to create enough space from all these other parts, the judgmental part, the knower, the doer, to just notice who's in the room and see if there's some space for some of those 8 C's or that self energy to really show up and connect. So who is this for? Everyone on this planet who wants to experience a different way of looking at who they are and why they are the way they are. Really, it's appropriate for all ages, all individuals struggling with all sorts of things. Like I had mentioned, I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor here in Kentucky, and this is something that I was trained in last year through the IFS Institute and completed their level 1 training. And it originally was designed and researched by the psychological field for licensed mental health counselors and other professionals to use with their clients in talk therapy. But over the years, it's been adopted by so many different helping fields, coaches, physicians, dietitians, all the above. And definitely in more recent years, IFS and the model and its kind of framework and viewpoint has been adopted by much larger macro systems, such as schools and governments, to really help them understand and bring compassion and healing to those spaces as well. But in regard to kind of how I utilize IFS, I definitely utilize it to navigate my own internal world. I also utilize it to kind of view just humans from and noticing the differences in being able to interact with people. If someone is really heightened or really triggered, of noticing that I can even look at them a little bit differently, of being like, oh, a part of them seems like they're really struggling with something, opposed to wow, that person's a dick. Because again, all these things that we do, think, feel, and say are just a part of us typically navigating that and trying to protect us in some type of way. But again, largely I use internal family systems and how I work with my clients. So if you're looking to see a mental health therapist, you're interested, some of this kind of parts language or a lot of this IFS talk is resonating with you, you can find an internal family systems therapist in your area. Like I said, I'm licensed in Kentucky, so I only see people in the state of Kentucky, whether that be online or if you're local to Louisville, I can see you in person. But you can just use the internal family systems search filter on any mental health therapist directory site. So if you go to therapyden.com, you're going to be able to type in all sorts of search filters, but one of them will be like a modality or theory-based space, and you can type in internal family systems, and there you'll get a bunch of professionals that use internal family systems. I would just take note of a lot of people list IFS or list that they do internal family systems as a modality that they use, even though they have not been formally trained in it. Maybe they've attended, a 3-hour webinar on it, or it's just something that they really resonate with. Maybe they've read all the books and are very educated in it. But versus someone who's actually been formally trained from the IFS Institute, gone through the certification programs, done 6+ months of intensive learnings, and is someone who's IFS level 1 trained, or level 2 certified, or level 3 trained, etc. So if you are really into internal family systems and wanting someone who's been formally trained, just make sure to have those conversations with that professional during your consultation call or anything like that, and you can kind of inquire about the trainings and things that they've done around internal family systems. You can also go to IFS Institute website and use their database. Their database is only going to pull people that have attended their formal trainings and certification programs. And then kind of lastly, why IFS, I suppose. So I personally love IFS so much because it is one of the only non-pathologizing mental health therapies that I've personally experienced and I've, been formally trained in. And it really just meets you where you're at. It does not try to change you. Does not, of course, try to shame you in any way for any of the thoughts or feelings or things that you have going on inside of you. It's really there just solely to provide a framework for you to build a relationship with yourself through a non-judgmental lens. So a lot of people come into therapy wanting to stop being anxious, to manage their anger better, stop crying at work every day, whatever it may be. And what I like about IFS is it doesn't exactly do that like in the ways that like most talk therapies do. Of course, that means that you may not, you're still probably going to get those results, like being able to get through your day without crying all day. But in working with an IFS therapist, you're not going to get there by that therapist telling you to do X or do less of Y or more of Z. It may get you there by allowing you a platform in that therapy room and a framework to view all these things inside of you by, and creating space from like the physical tears that are happening, leaning into and learning about them, kind of getting curious and exploring about like what's going on at work that leads to these tears, kind of how you feel about the tears, and really being able to kind of notice all the other complexities there, like tears maybe not really being welcome in the workplace. And of course, going back into our lives outside of that workplace, maybe this feeling has been mimicked before in our lives, maybe going back to those spaces where we've kind of felt this before. And honestly, really listening to some of the fears inside that may be there about like what they feel like might happen if they can't stop crying at work, if they can't get this under control, and really being able to, again, just create space and build a framework around this. Because when we come in with, I need to go to therapy because I need to stop crying at work all day, that's really just another part of us that probably really doesn't like this thing that cries at work, coming in and being like, fix this. And so being able to notice that like that is just another part of us bringing us into therapy thinking we need to be fixed. And let's work with that thing too. Let's try to understand why we feel like it's not okay to cry at work, why we feel like we need to be fixed when we are crying, and kind of all the different layers that come with that. Of course, it is a bit of an experiment for our system to try something different than the traditional kind of problem solving, compartmentalization ways that we're maybe used to navigating these things that pop up inside of our heads. But it's really so worth it. Only when we kind of know the way around our internal map can we really navigate the external world with more ease and more confidence. A lot of us do not know the internal map. What happens is it just kind of feels like we're being hijacked by these different parts of us, or we're being dropped into these areas that don't feel safe, don't feel comfortable. Oftentimes that comes out in people saying like, I don't feel like I have control of what's going on inside of my head. It's just like I'm in this anxious spiral, or I'm in this rage and I don't know how I got there, and I don't know how I get out of it. Literally, that's because we typically are being hijacked by our parts, because we don't know what's going on inside of us. We don't have the map. So we need to spend that time building relationship with all these things inside of us, learning how they show up inside of our bodies and our minds, building that map, and knowing that this does not happen overnight. It is very much a process, but IFS and reading books about it, learning about it, integrating it into your life provides a great, adaptable, non-shaming framework to do this. Of course, you don't have to just like go see a therapist to be introduced to internal family systems. There's lots of ways that you can bring it into your life without going to see a therapist, which is so great about IFS too. So there's like lots of social media profiles you can follow about it. One of my favorite ones is called like the IFS Guide Community for self-healers. So their website is ifsguide.com. There is a great book called Transcending Trauma, and I believe that's written by Frank Anderson. That's a really good book to read or to listen to. Lots of podcasts about IFS out there. There's a great like introduction book to IFS. I think it's called like Introduction to IFS. So you can simply just Google those things. But then always feel free to reach out if you're interested in IFS resources or anything like that, and I can get you over some information. And if you're ever interested in doing IFS in a more formal therapeutic relationship, check out my site and reach out. If I'm not the best fit for you, I can definitely help you navigate the referral kind of world as well. There's not a lot of us that are formally trained in Kentucky in IFS, but hopefully there will be more and more to come in the future. It is a very kind of booming model right now, just because it does resonate with so many people professionally in the mental health field, but also just in general on how we navigate our day-to-day life and how complex everything is inside of us, and how we do need a container and a framework to really be able to kind of slow down. But anyways, okay, thanks. Until next time, bye.